You didn't choose this. That's the first thing. Nobody logs onto a forum at 16 with the intention of becoming radicalized. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides today is the day they adopt a worldview that classifies women as subhuman. It doesn't work like that. It never works like that. The pipeline has an entry point that looks completely reasonable, almost sympathetic, and then it has steps. And the steps are designed not deliberately by any single architect, but by the accumulated logic of thousands of men feeding each other the same ideas for years, each step making the next one feel obvious, inevitable. This is every level of incel, from the first rejection that hurt more than it should have, to the place the pipeline ends. No sugarcoating, no moralizing, just the truth of what it looks like from the inside. Let's start at the beginning. Level 1. The rejection that started everything. You are 17, you ask a girl out, she says no. This is not remarkable. This happens to nearly every person who has ever existed. Rejection is universal. It is painful in the way that universal experiences are painful, which is to say it is real pain that billions of people have survived without it reorienting their entire worldview. But something about this one lands differently. Maybe it's the way she said it. Maybe it's the fact that she started dating someone else 2 weeks later and you see them together, and the specific mathematics of that, why him and not me, is a question your brain cannot stop running. Maybe it's the second rejection. The third. The pattern that starts forming where the rejections keep coming and the relationships that other people seem to acquire naturally remain, for reasons you cannot fully understand, unavailable to you. You are lonely. This is the real thing, not the rejections themselves, the loneliness underneath them. The specific ache of watching other people move through social and romantic life with an ease you cannot replicate, a fluency you cannot find, as if everyone else was given a manual you never received. You go looking for other people who feel this way. The internet is very good at finding you when you go looking. You find a forum. The people there understand the specific texture of what you are feeling in a way that nobody in your offline life does. You stay. Level 2. The forum. The forum feels like the first place anyone is told the truth. That's the thing that nobody who hasn't been inside one understands. The initial appeal is not the ideology, it's the honesty. Everyone here is admitting something that the wider world pretends doesn't exist, that dating is not fair, that looks matter, that confidence is not just a choice you can make, that social success is not equally distributed, and that the people who tell you to just be yourself are people for whom being themselves was sufficient, and being yourself has not been sufficient, and the gap between the advice and your reality is real and significant, and nobody outside these forums has ever acknowledged it. The terminology comes quickly. Normie, the average person who doesn't see the system for what it is. Chad, the man at the top of the genetic hierarchy to whom everything comes easily. Stacy, the woman those men attract. Becky, the more average woman, theoretically more attainable. You, Incel, involuntary celibate. A person for whom the romantic and sexual dimension of life is involuntarily inaccessible. You are not comfortable with the term at first. It carries connotations you don't want. But the forum is quick to clarify. Being incel is not a choice. It's a condition, a descriptor. It's not saying anything about your character. It's just naming what is happening to you. And naming it, having a word for the specific shape of your experience, feels like being heard. You spend more time here. The community is real. The solidarity is real. People here know what it's like. That's the hook. That's always the hook. Level 3, the red pill. The forum has been preparing you for this and you didn't notice. The red pill is the idea that you have woken up, that you have seen through the comfortable mythology the wider culture tells about dating and relationships and gender, and that the truth underneath is something the mainstream does not want acknowledged. The red pill says, attraction is not about personality. It is about genetics, height, jaw structure, face symmetry, frame. It is about what you were born with. The nice guy narrative, the be yourself narrative, the it's what's inside that counts narrative. All of it is a lie told by a society that benefits from men believing it. The red pill is initially energizing. This is important. It doesn't arrive as darkness. It arrives as clarity. The confusing, painful failure of your romantic life now has an explanation. It was never your fault. The system was stacked against you from birth. You didn't fail to attract people. The people you tried to attract were following biological imperatives that placed you below the threshold. You are not broken. You are correctly perceiving a broken system. The anger comes with it. Of course it does. If what the red pill says is true, then the people who told you be yourself lied to you. The culture that said personality matters lied to you. The women who rejected you were not making an understandable personal choice, but acting as vectors of a genetic discrimination you never consented to. The anger has a target now, multiple targets. And the forum is full of people who share it. You notice that the vocabulary for women is changing. The forum uses specific terms. Foid, short for female android. The implication being that women are not fully conscious agents making choices, but biological machines running a program. Hypergamy, the theory that women are hardwired to pursue the highest status male available and will abandon any relationship the moment a higher status option appears. The terms arrive so gradually and are deployed with such casual regularity that by the time you're using them yourself, you barely notice the distance you've traveled from how you talked about women a year ago. Level 4. The black pill. The red pill at least allowed for hope. Work on yourself, look smacks, improve your status, game the system. The red pill community still believed there was something you could do. The black pill says there isn't. The black pill is the terminus of the logic. If attraction is genetic and genetics are fixed and you were born below the threshold, then nothing you do matters. No amount of gym, no haircut, no skincare routine, no improved social skills changes the underlying bone structure of your face. The jaw you have is the jaw you have. The height you are is the height you are. The canthal tilt of your eyes was determined in the womb. You are playing a game you cannot win with the body you were given. And the black pill says, see this clearly. Stop coping. Stop pretending. The only honest response to an unwinnable game is to acknowledge that it is unwinnable. LDAR, lay down and rot. The black pill's answer to the question of what to do now. Nothing. Give up. There is a nihilism to this that is, at this level of the forum, treated as intellectual bravery. Most people cannot face the truth of how the world works. You can. You are one of the ones who looked at the machine and understood it. This is framed as strength. The withdrawal from life is framed as clear-eyed acceptance rather than despair. The clinical research on incel communities finds high rates of depression, anxiety, and loneliness among self-identified incels. These are the conditions the black pill exploits. A person who is already depressed finds an ideology that frames their depression as rational, their withdrawal as reasonable, their hopelessness as enlightened. The ideology confirms the worst things they already believe about themselves and about the world and calls that confirmation wisdom. The forum does not present itself as doing harm. It presents itself as offering truth. The harm and the truth are delivered in the same package, and by the time you understand the difference between them, you are very far into a place that is difficult to leave. Level 5, the cope. You are fully inside now, and the community has words for everything you might feel that doesn't fit the framework. Cope. The dismissal of any positive interpretation of your situation. If you go to therapy and feel better, that's cope. If you decide to focus on other areas of life and find meaning in them, that's cope. If someone in the forum says, actually, I talked to a woman today and it went okay, they get labeled as coping. The word functions as a seal on the ideology. Any evidence that contradicts the black pill is not evidence. It is cope. This is where the community becomes fully self-reinforcing. A belief system that has pre-labeled all counter-evidence as invalid is not a belief system that can be changed by evidence. You cannot argue someone out of it from the outside because the outside has already been categorized as normie-brained, matrix-pilled, delusional. The only valid perspective is the one shared by the community. You post your face on a rating thread. You're given a number, maybe a 4, maybe a 3. The comments tell you you are subhuman. This word subhuman, applied to you by other men who are also calling themselves subhuman, is not experienced as an insult. It is experienced as solidarity. We see you. We know what you are. We know because we are the same. The shared designation as subhuman creates a bond. The bond is real. The designation is not. But the bond is doing something to you. The more time you spend here, the more the framework colors everything outside it. You look at a woman on the street and you automatically run the Foid analysis. You watch a couple and you calculate his PSL score and feel the specific contempt that the forum has trained into you for men who are succeeding in the system the forum told you is rigged. The ideology has colonized the way you see. You didn't decide to let it in. It arrived incrementally, with the community, with the vocabulary, with the daily immersion in a worldview that eventually becomes the only lens you have. Level 6, the violence adjacent. This is the level that the research documents most carefully and that the mainstream culture most needs to understand. You have not committed violence. You will not commit violence. The vast majority of people who move through these spaces do not. The vast majority of incels are not violent. They are lonely and depressed and ideologically misguided and in genuine pain. These things are all true simultaneously. But the community's relationship with violence is not simple. When one of the most cited cases in this space occurred in California in 2014, when a young man published a document explaining his ideology and then killed 6 people, the forum's response was not unanimous condemnation. There were posts that called him a saint. There is a specific term for people who commit ideologically motivated mass violence against women and men they blame for their exclusion. The community created it. The community debates it. The specific debates, what counts as justified, what falls outside even their framework, exist on forums right now, in threads being posted today, by people who are not planning anything but who are nonetheless engaging seriously with the question of whether violence against people they hold responsible for their situation is moral. A person who spends years in a community where these debates are treated as serious intellectual questions is not the same person who entered it at 17 with a hurt feeling and a forum recommendation. The ideology has done something to the moral imagination. It has not necessarily produced a person who will act, but it has produced a person for whom the question of acting has a different shape than it did before. This is the level the researchers call the continuum of violent radicalization. You are on it. You may never reach the end. Most people don't. But you are on it, and the community is moving you along it, and you do not feel like you are moving because the movement has been gradual enough that each step felt like standing still. Level 7. The exit if you find it. Most people drift out rather than leaving. They find a girlfriend, or they find a community outside the forums that gives them something real. Or they get old enough that the intensity of the ideology's grip loosens simply through exposure to more of life than the forums predicted. The research calls this digital drift, the same internet porosity that let the ideology in eventually lets other things in too. Some people are pulled out, a friend who notices, a family member, a therapist who knows the vocabulary well enough to name what they're seeing without triggering the cope response. A researcher who found that incels massively overestimate how much society blames them and underestimate how much sympathy actually exists for their situation. That gap between what the forum told you the world thinks of you and what the world actually thinks of you is one of the entry points for someone trying to help. The exit's rarely dramatic. It doesn't usually involve a revelation. It more often looks like gradual disillusionment with the forum, the realization that the people telling you your situation is hopeless have been doing so for years and are still there, that the ideology which promised clarity has not produced improvement in any concrete dimension of your life, that the solidarity was real but the framework it was built on was doing you damage you are only beginning to assess. You log off, maybe for a day, then longer. You find that the automatic assessment framework, the FOID analysis, the PSL rating fades without the daily reinforcement. It fades slowly. Some of it may never fully go, but it fades. You are still lonely. The loneliness that started this was real, and it is still real. The forum did not solve it. The forum gave it a language and a community and an ideology, and none of those things were the thing you actually needed. What you actually needed was probably something embarrassingly simple. A connection. A friend. Someone who saw the specific shape of your pain without handing you a framework designed to make it permanent. You go looking for that instead. It's harder to find than the forum. Most things that are actually good for you are harder to find than the thing that isn't. That's not a comforting thought. It's just true. Level 8. The Femcel Footnote. Here is the thing the forum does not want you to know. Women experience involuntary singlehood too. There is a community called Femcel, Female Involuntary Celibate. that has existed in parallel and has grown significantly in the last 3 years. The Femcel community shares some of the surface features of the Incel community. The PSL rating, the discussion of looks and their role in romantic access, the specific pain of feeling excluded from something that others seem to acquire naturally. But there is no Femcel mass violence. There is no Femcel manifesto. There is no Femcel saint who killed people and is discussed in threads as a philosophical question. The Femcel community is depressed and self-loathing and often stuck in an ideology that does them harm, but it has not produced the same endpoint. This difference is real and documented, and the Incel community does not engage with it because engaging with it would require asking questions about why the ideology, for male incels specifically, roots so reliably toward the dehumanization of women rather than toward the shared acknowledgement of a shared pain. The original word incel was coined in the 1990s by a bisexual Canadian woman named Alana, who created an online space for people of any gender struggling with loneliness and romantic isolation. She called it involuntary celibacy. It was not ideological, it was not misogynistic. It was just a person who was lonely trying to find other lonely people. By the time the word reached the forums, it had been transformed into something she spent years publicly expressing horror at. She tried to take it back. You cannot take back a word. The loneliness that started this was real. The loneliness is always real. Everything built on top of it was not.